Whoa! We are back for the 25th episode of Home Advantage Podcast. I am Sam Herring, joined once again by our man Mason Beckman out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. How are you doing today, Mason?
Good. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk some wrestling, start recapping what's been going on this last week, and maybe preview a little bit about what's gonna go down next week.
Yeah, it's a great time of year, man. Especially in the Olympic year where things are kind of a little bit front loaded. We're getting into conference dual season, which is super exciting. You got duels like crazy. The Big Ten goes Friday, Sunday every week, and then there's duels from the other conferences that are just scattered throughout. Then obviously you got the international stuff, the freestyle stuff going on in Italy, so it's exciting.
Gotta love it. This is definitely a great time to be a wrestling fan. There's so much action as we speak. There are duels going down. Minnesota, Michigan State's going down right now. Wyoming Seminary is taking on Blair tonight. So there's a lot of stuff um, happening as we speak. But I mean, just jumping right into it, let's talk a little bit about what happened last weekend and some of the biggest storylines come out of Iowa. They dueled Indiana and Purdue last weekend, and probably the biggest storyline came out of Abe Assad pulling his red shirt. That was pretty big. How do you feel about that, Mason? What do you think went into that decision? Do you think it's going to work out well for the Hawkeyes?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. Initially, I was pretty shocked, to be honest, from the standpoint of Wilkie and Nelson Brands are both really good options, and I don't necessarily think that Assad is. I think Assad's the best of the bunch right now, and for sure long term. I mean, obviously this is Wilkie's last year, but I think Assad is the best of the bunch both right now and long term. But this year, I don't necessarily think that any of them are. I don't think Assad is like a surefire finalist or anything like that, right? Where you know for sure what you're getting when you pull the red shirt. But the flip side of
Right.
it is, Penn State and Ohio State are the only teams that won team titles in the last decade. So, or they've won the last 9, I think it is, whatever that statistic is. So it's been a decade since Iowa's won. I think 2010 was the last time that the Hawkeyes won a team title. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and for Iowa, that's forever, right? That's that is not necessarily in my eyes, but if you're an Iowa fan, a lot of times that's not acceptable to not win for a decade, which is just crazy to think about. But um, so I think Coach Brand sees a window, right? They've got the lineup to do it. They've got the hammers to do it. And I think he's just going full throttle to win. Like every stop, whether, pulling everybody out of red shirt, if it gets him a half a point extra or 20 points extra, I think they're pulling out all the stops.
Yeah, that's got to be what's going on there, and I feel like what Iowa is thinking is they're going all in this year. I mean, the point differential between a guy like Cash Wilkie or Nelson Brands and Abe Assad is probably a little bit in favor of Assad, but it can't be that much that it's going to drastically change the side of the performance that they're going to have at NCAAs. And I guess that just shows how much that the staff at Iowa is buying into winning this national title this year. Um, and something they say is like they want to win every single year, and it's no different. But at the same time, I feel like they're going really hard for this year, and you can tell that they're going all in. And with that, I wouldn't be surprised if they throw in a guy like Jaden Ironman if they can throw him in. I would not be surprised because again they're going all in this year, and yeah, I would not be surprised to see Jaden Ironman come out of red shirt. I think what they're doing right now is really awesome, and if they can continue to push that, then I will not be surprised.
Yeah, Ironman is a super interesting situation. He obviously he wasn't even enrolled first semester, so obviously he could have enrolled at the during the break. I know like a week or so ago that he
Hmm.
still wasn't enrolled or he wasn't listed in the student directory. So I have no idea what's happened between now and then. Obviously, he sent a tweet that said something about a 1-2, when they were talking about Spencer and DeSanto as the best 1-2 punch, that he said 1-2. I mean, that could mean anything, and it could also
Yeah,
be Jaden just messing with people on social media, which, if that's what it is, I respect it so much because that's hilarious. But,
that is funny. Yeah,
but
I
in
just
the
hope he doesn't have. I just hope that it is true, because that'd be so awesome to get to watch him again. And I think it's gonna be good for his wrestling. Like a bracket without Yanni is obviously gonna be really good.
right, and in some ways it might, if he comes back, he's the guy. He's for sure
Right,
the guy to,
right.
I mean, and that's no disrespect to anybody. Luke Pletcher is absolutely astounding in every way. But I think if Ironman comes back, I think he's your number one.
Well, now
So
Nick Lee teched Ironman at Senior Nationals. So what are we to make of that?
for sure, I think that's, I mean, there's definitely something to be said for it, right? But Ironman has beaten him, I think, every time in folk style, right? Um, and I
Yes, yes.
think I think Ironman's a better folk style wrestler. I think that the way that he scrambles and how good he is on top, especially the way he wrestles on top, comes into play a lot more in folk style. Um, Now, having said that, if Nick Lee were to beat him in folk style, and if Nick Lee were to beat him by 4 or 5, it would in no way surprise me. Nick Lee's that good, and I think there's more guys at 41. You got Lee, you got Demas, you got Pletcher. Obviously, if Ironman came back into the mix, so you got a bunch of guys, and there's more than just that group.
Right.
You got a group of really good guys. I think that people are characterizing it, and for sure, like obviously Yanni not being there does open the window because Yanni's won both of the last two. But just because Yanni isn't there doesn't mean it's some empty weight class. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, for sure. But looking outside of that one red shirt being pulled in Assad and Ironman, what do you make of their performance at Indiana? It's kind of hard because they destroyed Indiana, and yet I still feel like they did not look very good. Guys like Kemmerer looked gassed at the end of the match, and they just didn't put up great points. Lugo didn't look very good, and then came back that next Sunday and looked amazing against Purdue. Kemmerer was able to get 3 takedowns in the third period against Leidy, and Lugo looked really good against a better opponent, Nate Limix. So what do you make of that? Just is that probably like a mentality weight cut peak thing? Why do you think they looked better against Purdue?
Could be a lot of reasons. One of the most overlooked is training phases. So now, obviously, that wouldn't necessarily mean that they would look bad on a Friday and good on a Sunday, but college wrestling seasons are really long, and a lot of teams go through a bit of a ramp up in their training phase when the year turns over and you get into early January and everything. They go through another hard training phase because you can't just tone it down all year, right? You have to go through mini peaks and then peak big at the end. So it could be a training phase thing where your legs, across the board as far as the team goes, maybe based on what workouts they've been doing, their legs are tired and that shows up. Could be a travel thing. Travel's never easy. It could be, something on the academic side. I don't think they've started classes yet, but it's always hard, like when you're competing during midterms or competing during finals, like that stuff sucks. um, so there's a bunch of stuff, man, and then there's the ever mysterious. They were just flat. I've been part of teams that we had performances where you could feel it while it happens as a group for some reason you're flat, right? So
Right.
it could be anything, and it's crazy that Iowa has a team that's good enough that they can put up a performance like what they did Friday, and you and I are sitting here in full agreement that we don't think they looked great.
It is really crazy that that's how it can go down. They're just such a talent this year, that can happen, and we like. It's not even like we notice. It's like they blanked Indiana and we're criticizing how they looked. It's just an outlier for sure in the wrestling teams that we've seen. But I mean, the way that they bounced right back against Purdue, the win that Kemmerer had over Leidy was so impressive, and it makes me really wonder if Kemmerer is at the top right now for the country. If he can knock off Mark Hall, that's gonna be really really helpful for Iowa, looking forward.
For sure. And Mikey's just really, really good, and it happens when you sit out a year with an injury. You just kind of fall out of the public eye, right? You fall out of you're not one of the topics of conversation. And Mark Hall deserves to be the clear number one. He's never lost to anybody at that weight other than, well, now nobody, right? The only other guy was
Hmm.
Zahid. So,
Right.
well, Zahid and Bo. Um, so yeah, Mark deserves to be the guy. And then your 2-3 either way around is Cutler and Kemmerer, which that's a match that would be super fascinating because they're very different. And that's one for me. I mean, obviously, I was teammates with one, and I've known Mikey for a long time, so it would be super.
Right.
I'm kind of in both guys' camps, and I like both of them a lot, and like both the way they both wrestle. But that one's going to be super interesting because Mikey's going to shoot like crazy. It's
Yeah.
what he does, and Cutler is best when you attack him. So
Hmm.
it's going to be really interesting because they're both going to be put in a spot. Like they're both going to be in their best spot. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how that plays out because there's not going to be a whole lot of game planning of like, hey, we got to stay out of his best position. They're going to go straight up to this is where we're both best and whoever's better at it, which is what you want, right? Those are the most exciting matches.
For sure. And well, Mikey grew up not too far from you. Went to Franklin Regional. What's that, about 30, 40 minutes away from you?
From where I grew up, it's like an hour and a half, I would say.
Okay.
I was well north of Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
but from where I'm at now, it's not that far at all. And Mikey, growing up, was he would come into the same club that I grew up in, and I'm actually helped coach now. So, I've watched Mikey wrestle a bunch from the time he was a kid, and yeah, just seen him a lot. And the same kind of thing with Cutler. In my time at Lehigh, as soon as Buxton became our RTC coach, or I should say the Lehigh Valley RTC coach, there's technically not an affiliation, but Cutler, was a Buxton product, was one of his club kids, and obviously a Blair Academy kid in Buxton's later years there. So he started coming over to RTC practices with Buxton, and so I got to know Jordan probably when he was like a freshman in high school, just a little baby faced 106, which is crazy. If you go dig up a picture, go back and watch National Preps Cutler's freshman year, it doesn't even look like the same kid. You've got this just
Hmm.
enormous 74 pounder now, and I mean, he could have passed for 11 or 12 years old.
Dang.
Yeah, he was little, man. So, but
That's
no, it'll
funny.
be good. And,
Are they dueling sometime soon?
I want to say that Lehigh does. I want. I guess if they haven't wrestled yet, they probably won't. Um, but for some reason, earlier this year, I had it in my head that Lehigh and Iowa would wrestle, but
I guess they're not.
no,
Looking it up, I don't
we're
think
in
they are.
conference. No, I was gonna
Yeah,
say
you're
we're in
right.
conference dual season, so they don't.
You're
Yeah.
right.
So I mean, you gotta believe unless something strange happens between now and the national tournament, and looking through schedules and everything, it's hard to imagine either one of these guys getting beat other than, Mikey and Hall will wrestle.
Right.
So somebody there's got to lose. But say rankings hold and they're the 2 and 3, that would be a national semi that would just be a ton of fun to watch. So,
For sure.
um,
I would much rather that over Hall Cutler. It seems like their matches have been fairly low scoring and very little entertainment there, and I feel like it'd be a much more fun semifinal against um, Mikey and Cutler.
yeah, I think Hall and Cutler are the fundamentals there are kind of similar in that they are both best when you attack them. Don't get me wrong. Uh, Mark Hall obviously has 1,000 different ways to generate offense. He's got all kinds of different ways to score. But I think if you really drill down, he is at his best when guys attack him, um, and his counter stuff gets going, right? I think that's pretty well documented. And Cutler's kind of the same way. He can generate offense for sure. But from the first time I worked out with him when he was a freshman in high school, he's the same way. He's very, very good when you attack him, and that's how he gets his hands going, and he can run himself to a corner. And the other thing too is that Cutler's not a volume shooter, right? And neither
Right.
of those guys are volume shooters, and that's only exacerbated more when they're wrestling each other, because obviously if you're wrestling Mark, if you're going to pull the trigger, you got to really hit him and get through him, because if you don't score, you're getting scored on. There's really no in
Mhm.
between. So, for Cutler, for anybody, if you're going to pull the trigger on Mark, you got to be really smart about how you do it. And the flip side, too, I think, is for Hall, he doesn't have any reason to overextend and go chase trying to attack guys, because he knows eventually they have to attack him. And he does. He attacks, obviously, against very high level guys. He does it all the time. But he does the same thing. He picks his spots and he goes. So, yeah, I agree. I would rather see Mikey wrestle Cutler or Mikey wrestle Hall just in a vacuum as far as entertainment value. I think those two
Right.
matches would be more fun than Cutler and Hall. Especially Cutler and Hall have wrestled, it's got to be 3 or 4 times by
Yeah, for
now.
sure. Yeah, they've wrestled a lot over the past couple of years, especially like both these guys are seniors now. They've definitely wrestled their share over the last couple of years.
Right. And what's interesting is the last one they wrestled, the duel at Lehigh this season, was the one with the most action. It was the first time that Cutler scored offensive points against them. Um, and there was that, Mark built a pretty good lead. I think he took him down twice to start, and then Cutler took him down, and there was that kind of crazy sequence where Hall tried to, I don't know if it was a Granby, but he tried to roll through after Cutler had been awarded a takedown, and the ref was hustling around, and there was a whole Twitter conversation about whether or not, I mean, there was a conversation at the time
Mhm.
about whether or not Hall was pinned. I mean, I don't think they made a bad call in not calling it.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I,
That was tight.
yeah, and I think theoretically, like, you can sit there and say that he was in criteria for long enough,
Right.
but I don't. I think the right call was made to not call it there. I think that would have been a little quick, but again, the original point there being that the most recent one was the most exciting one. So who knows? Maybe if they hit again, it'll be the best one we've seen.
Yeah, I think for sure that's how it's gonna work, and I don't know. It's gonna be tough. Looking forward, and who's gonna predict like if Mikey falls to a guy like Lighty maybe later in the season, Big Tens or something like that. What do the seeds look like? It's just gonna be a mess at that weight. Really excited to look forward to that. Um, but what else went down this last weekend? Wisconsin wrestled Nebraska. That one looked great, and it was kind of weird that how good Wisconsin looked. The crowd was all into it. I don't know if you watched that one or not, but
Yep,
it was just, I mean, Wisconsin took every tight match there would have been into their hands, and I mean, Tristan Moran upset Chad Red, and then ended up knocking off McKee too. He was number 2 in the country. Really crazy what went down there, and yeah, just Wisconsin looked amazing in their matches. Dupre got knocked off. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to digest from this last weekend.
for sure. So starting with Wisconsin and the weekend that they had, the Nebraska duel. The Wisconsin Nebraska duel was a ton of fun to watch for all sorts of reasons. Wick and Isaiah White are always fun. It's so interesting too. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think that Wick is just a little bit better than White, at least consistently. I
Hmm.
think for some reason White has a tendency to take losses that are a little strange. That could be my imagination. That's just gut feeling. But um, yeah, I mean Wick's never lost to him, right? I think he's 3-0 now, 4-0 now, whatever it is. So, and that match,
5-1.
five. Okay, so he's won the vast majority of them, and that match that happened over the weekend, Wick pounded him. Um, it was almost Wick at one point actually had a major and cut him to get another takedown. So yeah, that was super interesting. Tristan Moran, you talk about a guy that's fun to watch, man. Does some really bizarre things, and his match with Chad Red was so strange because it went from him losing to him blowing Red out in what felt like 5 seconds.
Mhm. Yeah, that was I he got two cradles that locked up, and I tweeted that Tristan Moran just Chad Red twice in one match. And it was the same thing. Chad Red would get in on what I would call a high crotch, but it was a little bit more of like a head outside single. And what I mean by that was normally a high crotch, you're up high above the knee on the leg, but this time he was head outside, but really low on the leg. And so it gave Moran room to sit the corner on that and then find his cradle. Um, I don't know how that happened. Like, it's just really rare that you hit a guy with his go-to, with his strength, with what he's known for, and beat him off of it, especially twice, is really crazy. You rarely see that.
Yeah, and Moran's the kind of guy that can do that. He is, you talk about a wild card. That's Tristan Moran. He's the kind of guy that can beat just about anybody because I don't think he's a home run hitter in the sense that he's a huge pinner like we've seen some other guys be over the years, but
Mm-hmm.
he's a home run hitter in the sense that he's a big move guy and he is so dangerous in so many ways that he can get a set of four backs or get a 6 point move, and then him and McKee a train wreck of a match in the best possible way.
I agree. Especially those two wrestlers are so tight. I mean, and they both are just gunslingers. Like, they throw it all out there. Makes for a definite fun match every time you watch it. So, um, yeah, looking forward to their showdowns. Looking moving forward. Obviously they'll hit in the Big Tens and stuff like that. But um, other than that, like, we could talk about Dupre getting knocked off by Weiler. I'm sure you're pretty familiar with that.
Yeah.
How Weiler's been doing. I'm sure you're pretty involved still, and you have been involved with Chris Weiler. So, how do you feel about that, and what do you think made Chris Weiler be able to show show up against him, but then got upset um, after that to Jonathan Lowe?
Weiler is a kid that 2 years ago, yeah, 2 years ago in Cleveland was a point away or something like that from being an All American at 197 when he probably weighed 190 pounds. Weiler's really, really good. He just has a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde to him. Um, Sometimes when he's on, he's really good, like top shelf good. Obviously you beat a
Mm-hmm.
guy like Dupre, and I don't know if you watched the match, but um, it wasn't like he hit one big move and then kind of clutched and grabbed. He looked really good the whole time, and Dupre took him down. Chris got a reversal and then just controlled things from there, to be honest with you. He's really good on top. He's got a nasty far side cradle that you're never, until you're completely out from bottom, it's never out of the question that he locks his hands and finds a way to put you on your back or pin you.
Mm-hmm.
So the win doesn't surprise me. But like I said, he's got some Jekyll on Hyde. So the loss doesn't necessarily surprise me either. And the Lehigh Cornell rivalry, and speaking from personal experience, there are always some bizarre results in those duels. Something about those rivalry duels, and they wrestled up in Ithaca, which is a really hard place to wrestle. The Friedman Center up there, it just feels like those people are literally right on top of you, and it gets so loud. Even though the number of fans they can fit in there might not be what a rec hall or whatever can do, or what a
Right,
Carver
right.
Hawkeye can do, they pack that place and they just lose their minds in a good way.
Yes,
Um,
for sure.
well, in a good way if you're the home team, but
Yeah.
so him losing, I think that guy from Cornell, what it might show on paper, but again, it's a rivalry duel. Weiler's kind of got a history of that, right? You have a
Hmm.
really good win and then a loss, you go, man, I didn't expect that. But neither one of those losses comes as a huge surprise to me.
For sure. Yeah, it's just going from. I mean, you're the number 21 guy. You beat the number 5, one of the hottest guys in the country in Dupre, and then you take a loss to unranked guy. But yeah, it makes sense. Everything you say. The Friedman Center's got to be just an electric place to wrestle. I went up there for a duel. Their duel against NC State, and it wasn't in the Friedman Center. But it was still like the crowd that showed up was really into it, and I can just imagine what it would be like in the Friedman Center.
Yeah, and I've only ever experienced it. Well, I did go there on an unofficial visit when they wrestled Iowa State. That was the day that Nickerson pinned Andrew Long. But
Dang.
yeah, yeah, it was a they. Both those teams were really good, but Varner was in that duel, Dake was in that duel, Nickerson, obviously Andrew Long. Which there's a guy. This is not to totally derail this conversation, but I wonder what Andrew Long's doing these days.
Me too. I thought he would say involved in wrestling. I mean, he's a pretty solid guy. In his college career, I am curious. That is something that I've thought about over the past couple of years. Just where's he been? Wonder if he's anywhere coaching or involved in anything.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But
Yeah.
no. So as far as other than that, every time I competed up there, obviously, we the Lehigh Cornell rivalry, and I don't think it comes as a surprise to say that those two fan bases hate each other,
Mhm.
and they're the only two programs that have won the EIWA title in like the last 15 years or something. Um,
That is so crazy.
Lehigh at one point had won 5 straight. It was 5 or 6, I think 5, and then Cornell rattled off 9 straight or whatever it was. Then Lehigh's won the last 2, so it's at least 15 years straight that those are the two programs, and um, so depending on where you wrestle, if it's Friedman and you're wearing brown and white, it's really hostile. And again, in a good way, in a competitive way, there's nothing like crazy out of line that's going on, but
Right.
it's that place gets loud. I remember my redshirt sophomore year, we went up there and we just got throttled. We wrestled terrible. We got beat like, oh man, like 35-6 or something, or like
Mm.
35-7. We got smashed. And we didn't wrestle in Friedman that time. We wrestled in the bigger gym where you probably saw them wrestle NC State.
Right. Yeah.
And I just remember, and like it just kind of so happened that I was one of the two guys that won. Like I actually wrestled well that day, but just as a team, like you live and die by the team, right?
Mhm.
And I remember walking into the locker room afterwards and was like, well, that sucked, huh? And yeah, none of the fans had left. By the time we like showered, changed, and went to leave, all the fans were still there. Everybody still loved it. So away duels at Cornell were not fun.
Goodness gracious, that sounds crazy. But I bet a fun experience for fan or anyone watching from the outside. Um, but yeah, I think the rivalry between Cornell and Lehigh will continue to grow and just a healthy rivalry in the sport. Really, I really like that. But probably another big match over the weekend was the match between Warner and Bruner. I mean, Warner is back up after losing to Aiello. He's back on uh, beat number 2
Yep.
behind Cullen Moore. So I guess that has to move him up uh, back to number 2 for Warner. I guess I don't know how the rankings will go there, but I mean Warner looked really good again. Iowa was able to reel it back in and look amazing. I mean he made an 8-2 win, got a nice tilt. So just really impressive run for Warner and interested to see where he goes from here.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It was a good bounce back against an elite guy after Midlands, where not the JILO is not very very good. It's just not a match I expected Warner to lose,
Hmm.
really ever, to be honest with you. Um, the tilt was beautiful, and yeah, I mean that's a match that, like you said, puts Warner back in that 2-3 spot where him and Brucky fall. It just depends on who you ask. So, or I guess Brucky beat him, so probably Brucky would be the 2. But again, you're splitting hairs.
Well,
Um,
didn't Warner come back and beat Brucky at Midlands too? A third place match.
See, I thought it was the other way around. I thought Warner won the duel and Brucky won at Midlands.
Yeah, that might be. Yeah, I think you got that right.
Um, but either way, but again, either way around, they're your
There.
two and
Yeah.
3, and Brunner's your 4. So it's going to be a super interesting to see how that plays out. And I know this isn't super recent. I mean, it's only a couple weeks, but I'm looking at the rankings right now, and the guy below that group of 4 is Noah Adams,
Mhm.
which I know like 100% deserves to be there after Penn and Traxler and everything.
Right. Right.
Um,
It's just a big drop off of skill level. And not to take anything away from Adams, but I mean he just hasn't proved what the other guys have been able to prove, and it's just yeah, it's just a big drop off, really.
yeah, no, I agree. I think those top 4 are pretty clear cut, but the other side of that too is what Adams is doing for Flynn and for those guys at WVU. I think is awesome to see. You know, they're in year 2 of a total rebuild. You know, they're kind of, for lack of a better term, you know, they're in the process of stripping that thing down and rebuilding it in Morgantown. So to have a guy like Noah Adams that they inherited, that is a West Virginia kid, that is number 5 in the country as a sophomore, is super important for that program, and it's awesome to see because they're really good people that are going to do good things at WVU, and they've got their
Co-
first guy that's really making that
yeah,
kind of noise.
for sure. And Coach Flynn's just been doing a great job there. Um, After his move, it was just like a lot of the Edinburghs left, Lugo and Sean Russell left, and there was just like some building up to do at West Virginia, and he's been doing a great job so far. Really impressive what he's been able to do.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt, and that program, I think everybody's pretty much in agreement. It's just a matter of time until they are a consistent top 15. You know, that type of that type of a program. I think people rush to judgment in saying that certain programs are for sure going to compete for a team trophy all the time, because to be honest, I don't think I don't think most fans grasp how outrageously difficult it is to win a team trophy.
Yeah,
Especially, you
yeah,
look at it
it
right.
is really.
Look, okay, things that we know for sure. Penn State's going to win. Iowa's going to win one,
Hmm.
and probably Ohio State.
Maybe, yeah.
You know, you feel very confident in saying 2 of those 3 will. Then you've got Oklahoma State, you've got North Carolina State, you've got Virginia Tech, like you've got Missouri, who this year, you know, Mizzou's having a bit of a down year, but Mizzou is still has been the definition of a consistent top 8 program.
Hmm. For sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, you know, building into that tier, I think takes a very long time. Um, Although I say that, and Kale won a title in his second year at Penn State, so you know. But what do you say there?
Yeah. Um. Yeah. It is crazy, and like outside of the top two, it's hard. Like we say, I or Ohio State might win one, might not. Arizona State's up there. They could win a
Yeah.
team trophy. The team trophies are top four, right? That's what we're talking about here.
Yep. Top 4.
Okay, so the Flow's rankings right now has it Iowa, Penn State, Ohio State, Wisconsin are the top four, and Wisconsin lost to Minnesota, who's fifth right now, and then Princeton's right outside of that. So there's a lot of talent, and then at number 9 is Purdue, who's been looking amazing this season. So it's just crazy the ability for room. Like I could totally see a number 12 in NC State make it up there. Okie State, who's number 15 right now, could make a move. I feel like it'd be a struggle with who they have right now, but you bring Joe Smith in, Piccinini makes a good showing. Stuff like that can get you really high, and yeah, the team race this year is really interesting. The Olympic year always adds um, a cool aspect to the team race.
Absolutely. And there's so many of these teams looking at it that so like Northwestern is sitting number 8 right now. Northwestern could easily, like super realistically, have two champs in Rivera and Deacon.
For
And
sure.
if you put
For
two
sure.
guys on top of the podium, that's 50 points right away.
And that's what Rutgers placed top 10 with last year. Is
Yeah.
were they did they only get two champs? Like wasn't that their only points?
They were their only All-Americans. I think they had other guys winning matches, but they didn't score a ton of points outside of that. But that's a perfect illustration of what having guys in the finals, those high All-Americans, and having guys win, it matters so much. Because again, just looking at the point totals on Flo's thing here, 50 points makes you the number 6 team in the country, which is what two champs will give you.
Without bonus.
Without bonus, right?
Right.
So you got those two. You throw in like a Yaya Thomas.
D'Agostino.
Yeah, I could not think of his name.
Yeah.
You could have 4 All-Americans. If you put 4 All-Americans and 2 champs, you're rattling around in the conversation for a team trophy. It's absolutely awesome that Princeton is ranked 6th in the country and is seriously in the conversation for a team trophy.
It really is.
With if Kolodic's in the lineup, which think about this next year for Princeton, you have Glory, you have Kolodic, you have Monday, and Brucky. You got 4 guys. Yeah, you got 4 guys that could all. You got 4 top 4s.
Man, bring in Kolodzik. What's he doing? They need to get him back on the lineup.
Right, but it's not like Mikey. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's better than D'Angelo, but it's not like he's that far removed from D'Angelo.
For sure, yeah.
Crazy far removed from him. So, I mean, yeah, D'Angelo's ranked 8th.
That's some depth right there that a lot of other programs don't have. I mean, even the top Penn State doesn't have that kind of depth, and it's just, it's really impressive what Princeton's been able to do with the NJRTC lately. Just the moves that Reese Humphreys made with these guys is uncontested. Nobody's really been able to do that with the program in a very long time, and the way he's been able to turn that around has been truly amazing.
The turnaround that Ayers, Dubuque, Sean Gray have put together at Princeton, it's seriously, you could make a very clear, very rational argument that it's the best, that it's the most dramatic turnaround of a program in college athletics history. They were the worst, unequivocally the worst program, the worst team in college wrestling when Ayers got there. It wasn't even a conversation. And now, I mean, it's been about a decade. They were so bad. They didn't have a qualifier for Ayers' first 5 years.
How crazy is that? New Jersey is such a good wrestling state. One of the top, undoubtedly, if not the best wrestling state there is. And their 2 programs, Rutgers and Princeton, are not able to have that program without a serious help from coaches and stuff. The fact that that's the case is crazy. And then what Ayers was able to do with what he had was amazing as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's been amazing. To do it at an Ivy League school, one of the best schools on the planet in Princeton, which there are advantages and disadvantages to it. I don't want to say disadvantages. There are hurdles. Obviously the admission standard is incredibly high, but the flip side is it's going to self-recruit a little bit because it's freaking Princeton.
Right.
But be it all the same, what they have built there has been amazing, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. They're bringing in a great recruiting class. when we're talking about teams that are bringing in great recruiting classes too, on the opposite end of the spectrum, as far as a program that has always been really good, Oklahoma State is.
Their
I'm not.
recruiting class is just insane.
I don't think it's really getting discussed enough in the long term. And obviously, we're in the middle of the season, so we're not talking about the long term a whole lot.
Right.
They're going to be the young half of their roster combined with the recruiting class that they're bringing in is just going to be outrageous. When you talk about the Ferrari plot, the Master Giovanni brothers, Fix is going to be a sophomore next year. They're going to be stupid good.
They are. And I agree with you. Nobody's really been talking about that. Like, I could easily see them being the 2022 national champs. And nobody's really been discussing that too much. It's basically just been Iowa, Penn State all the way. But I definitely feel like people are discounting Oklahoma State's recruiting class a good bit.
Yeah, and you have to wonder because it's been quite a while since Oklahoma State won a national title, a team title. You got to wonder how much Coach Smith has been sitting in Stillwater. Obviously not thrilled about that. And you wonder if something in their recruiting process, methodology, did something change, right? Did something about
Yeah.
the method change? Targeted change, but the answer there is probably no because they got like 5 of the top 15 recruits or some ridiculous thing. But it's just it does make you wonder, or did the stars just align in this class and everybody said yes?
For sure. Yeah. And I feel like if that's how it's gonna be, Oklahoma State's gonna be able to take it. Looking forward, like their recruiting class is so good, and one of the best that I've seen in my observation of wrestling, which obviously hasn't been long, but at the same time, it is just really, really good. I'm excited to see how they're able to perform. But talking a little bit about their recruiting class, we got um, Trevor Mastroianni and his brother Travis wrestling for Oklahoma State coming up soon. Um, they're wrestling tonight against Wyoming Seminary. I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. Guys, it's gonna go down in about 30 minutes. So yeah, really excited for that. And you got any thoughts on that? How involved are you in high school wrestling?
So high school for me, because I coach at the club level and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I pay attention to it at a very high level. Obviously, you know the names and you see who the best kids in the country are, and living and coaching in Pennsylvania, you see who the best kids in the state are. I'm so focused for the most part on our guys, the club kids that we have, and with all the way, 7-year-old kids all the way up through high school, and the alum from the club when they come home from college, right? So for us, we're kind of so focused on the guys that we have that I don't see an insane amount of it outside of it, so I don't follow it super, super closely. But like Blair and Sem, it's easy because they're all
Right.
really good and they're all guys that anyway. Like your Bartletts, your Van Nesses, guys like that are household names in high school wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
and
For sure.
I don't know how you wouldn't know them.
Yeah, for sure.
To be completely honest.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so excited for the duel tonight. Who you think is gonna take it?
Oh man, I haven't run through the lineups. Gut feeling would say Sem, just based on how they looked at Iron Man. I know both teams didn't have their Iron Man. I
Mm-hmm.
lean, like I said, gut feeling makes me lean towards Sem. Um, Especially now that, like, don't get me wrong, Blair is still Blair, but since Buxton left, and I don't know, I'd be curious to hear your opinion on this because obviously, and I don't want this to sound wrong, but when I was growing up, like when I was your age, Blair was it. they year in and year out, when Buxton was there, they were just such. It really, a lot of times, wasn't even a conversation about who the best team in the country was. They would just boat race everybody all season long. Every so often, every other year or so, a St. Ed's, a St. Paris Graham would have the team. They'd put it together. They'd make a run. Sometimes they'd beat them, right? Sometimes one of those teams would win Ironman. But Blair was just so dominant for so long, and it feels like, and because of that, there was a mystique to Blair. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like
Yes.
what Penn State has right now. There was just this underlying feeling that I don't know how, but Blair will figure it out. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's like I don't know how, but they're gonna figure out a way to win this duel. They're gonna figure out a way to win Iron Man or win Beast. At that time, Beast was the best in season tournament in the country. So, but I think that Blair is still incredibly revered and respected as it should be, and Coach Antonelli has done a phenomenal job. But I think that mystique isn't what it was. And from what I, on the surface, can look at, I think Sem's better right now.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Buxton's leaving has left a little bit of the void in the mystique, and everything that you said, I think, is spot on. Um, and I have noticed that, and more so on the youth level. Um, I mean, that's where I'm competing right now, and the Buxton team, that's basically Blair, um, has been going down steadily the last few years, and ever since Buxton left, it's been a little bit different of a thing. So yeah, I feel like they're kind of going on a downfall, but at the same time, like they're still bringing in kids like Mark Anthony McGowan, Cody Chittum, guys like that. They're still bringing in, and it doesn't look like they're stopping.
No, they're not going to stop. And I mean, you can see it flies under the radar a little bit now because Buxton's been gone from Blair for 5, 6 years,
Hmm.
maybe more. But again, like Cutler, Joey McKenna, David McFadden is a Buxton product.
Right.
You see these guys that permeate the college ranks now, or some the world, McKenna at the world level, um, that are Buxton's products. So, and the vast majority of them still feed to the Blair program. None of that has changed. So, kind of like you said, Blair's not slowing down. Buxton's certainly not going to stop developing kids. um, but it has changed a little bit. What do you think about tonight, though?
Yeah. So I'm with you. I think Sam's probably going to take this one, but again, it's going to be really tight. Um, what Scott Green's been able to do over there, it's just been amazing. I'm going to plug one of our interviews. I think it was HMA interview number 18. It was a dual interview with Scott Green and Bo Barley, kind of talking about their wrestling and coaching careers, and then as well as their relationship with each other. Is really awesome and really fun that I got to do. Um, but anyway, I think the top matches tonight are at 126 and 132 pounds, and that's Trevor Mastroianni versus Nick Bouzakis. That's number 4 versus number 1. And then number 1 versus number 6, Shane Van Ness versus Drew Munch. Um, I think those are probably the headliners. Obviously, getting to watch a guy like Bo Bartlett wrestle a freshman prodigy, Cody Chittum, is going to be awesome. Um, Lots of matches, like every match is going to be amazing. So, obviously, I'm looking forward to watching it. But I think those are the headliners.
I agree. So, who are you picking in each match?
All right, we'll start at 26. I'm going to go with Nick Bouzakis. He's just looks so good. Taking Iron Man. Also, I mean, I've grown up wrestling with Nick Bouzakis, uh, wrestling around him. He's from Florida. I'm from Tennessee, so we've competed a lot at the same tournaments and stuff. And I've just been watching him dominate every scene that he's been on. Um, and that's moving into high school. Really glad he's made it to Sam, and he's looking good there. And I mean, he talked about it in his interview. I thought it was really funny. He said he's putting a little bit of the meathead toughness with Scott Green's technique and strategy stuff, and it's working out really well for him. So, um, yeah, really glad for Nick Bouzakis and what's been going on with him and Sam, and I'm looking forward to him wrestling tonight.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you're pretty spot on there. I think Buzakis, not that this is an original opinion, I just think Nick is one of the best kids at any weight in high school wrestling. He's just, he's a college wrestler in high school right now. Both the horsepower, the technique, the level of wrestling intelligence that he has, it's phenomenal. I will say this, though, and I don't mean this as a shot at Nick Buzakis, but did you watch Journeyman in the fall?
I did not.
I was standing right there and watched it happen. I can't remember the kid's name. Illinois kid. But Buzakis got headlocked and decked in the finals up there.
Mm-hmm.
It might be the nicest move still that I've seen anybody hit all season long. It was ridiculous. It was perfect. Um, so if you get a chance, go back and dig that up. It might have been
Okay.
Ragusan,
Yes, that was him. Dylan Ragusan. That was it.
but yeah, as far as tonight goes, I'm going with Buzakis. I don't know how you can pick against the kid.
For sure. And then looking up a weight from there, you got Shane Van Ness versus Drew Munch. I think this one's again a little bit one-sided. Shane Van Ness is number one in the country, but Drew Munch has been looking pretty solid this season. He's a senior for Sim, and you know what he's been able to do lately is been really impressive. But Shane Van Ness, just the way he's been able to compete at some tournaments and just blow everybody out of the water. His number one performance was spectacular. So really looking forward to see him wrestle tonight. I'm going to take Shane Van Ness to win this one.
Yeah, Van Ness is hard to pick against. Munch looked incredible at Iron Man. He is as good on top as anybody in high school wrestling. He had a good power rate too, honestly, outside of one sequence against Gabe Willishow, which shout out to my guy Gabe Willishow. But outside of one sequence against Willishow, and Gabe, for those who haven't watched a whole lot of them, is ultra goofy, has a style all his own, and like the way Gabe pinned Munch, he can do that to anybody. So, you know, Munch gets put in a bad spot and decked by who obviously beat Alejandro the next match. So Munch has looked great all season long. Sometimes you get got. But I'm with you. Van Ness is just too good everywhere. He's so polished. He's so smart. He has so many different ways to score. And on top of all of that, he's an extremely good athlete. So yeah, I think Van Ness is the pick. I am really excited, from a selfish standpoint about Drew Munch going to Lehigh and the jumps that he's made. So for me, that's super exciting.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Shane Van Ness has just looked so good this season, and that's about the headlines for that matchup. Looking forward to this weekend. There are some good matchups going down. Gable Stevenson, number one, number two. Mason Paris is going down tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's going to go down in 15 minutes. It's going to start. That's going to be amazing. Who you got?
Gable, and to be honest with you, I don't think it's super close. I don't necessarily think I don't necessarily think he bonus points him, but I just think Gable's that good, and I think incredibly highly of Mason Paris. I think he's a phenomenal talent. His technique, good size, which has been a big help for sure. But I don't know how you pick against Gable. Kassar's done for the year. I think Gable is as clear of a favorite as there is at any weight in the country.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I think Gable Stevenson, this is pretty bad radio. We're making all the same picks, but these guys separate themselves. These guys separate themselves really well. I think that's just how it goes. These guys, when they look the way they do, and some guys struggle, it's pretty easy to pick. But it's a rare occasion when you can be so confident in a number one versus number two match. So Gable Stevenson's a prodigy for sure, and I think without Kassar, he's pretty much a lock to win NCAAs this year. But moving down, another great matchup. Number 2, Hunter Bolin versus number 6, Lou Dupre. That's going down tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. And now keep in mind this one is at Binghamton. I don't really know how much that holds, but just keep that in mind. I don't know. You probably speak more to the Binghamton crowd than I can.
I never wrestled a duel there, but I will say that Dupre is from the area, so wrestling at home's always nice.
Yeah, for sure.
But what do you think? Who you got?
I got Dupre. I'm pretty high on him. I'm going to take him to take the W on this one, the upset. I think Hunter Bolin's good, but I don't think he's really been able to really produce anything that. I mean, he's had a pretty easy, light season thus far. I don't think he's gotten too many of great wins. If you can correct me, but they did wrestle at Vegas, did they not?
Wrestled at Vegas, and I would like to say that Bolin beat him, didn't he?
I think he did. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm not 100% sure right off the top of my head, but I'm going Bolin. I'm actually, yeah, so we're finally disagreeing here, but I'm going Bolin.
Nice.
I think Virginia Tech is sneakily one of the best coach teams in the country. I think they're somehow under the radar as like a top 5 team in the country. I think Tech has a really good team. I think they have a very realistic shot at bringing home the second team trophy in program history. Um, and I think Bolin is one of those guys from having watched him and everything. He's just so hard to do anything with. He was a runner-up at the Scuffle last year, where yeah, he did beat Dupre in the semifinals 3-2. Bolin's a guy that to me, and Dupre's kind of in this. I think they're both very consistent, but I'm extremely high on Hunter Bolin. I think his ceiling is super high. I think again and that's not a knock on the Binghamton staff. I just think that Virginia Tech is one of the best coach teams in the country, and I think that Bolin, between talent, between technique, and between the coaching staff, I think he finds a way to make it happen.
Mhm. Yeah, I think this is a great match, and it's not a I mean, Bolin won. I think it was 8-3 at Vegas. So he's the favorite in this match, but I still think that Bolin has the chance to take that back. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what can happen. I mean, this is gonna be a great weekend of wrestling. Uh, yeah, lots of good stuff going down. I'm excited for it. I mean, another great one that I'm really excited for is Brayton Lee versus Cannon Store going down here in a little bit too. There's some good matches going down. Joey Silva's back in action too. So yeah, really excited for this weekend. And I think that about does it. We can jump into some questions real quick. And then wrap this show up. But let's see if I can grab some questions. Let's see. I think we got some pretty good questions this week. I'm really excited. I think guys are asking some good questions for us.
All right, what kind of questions we got here?
All right. So lots of topics on what's going down between Zane and Jo. What's your pick there?
If the version of Jo that we have seen the last couple of months shows up, I think he's the best guy on the planet. So I'm going Jo.
All right, me too. I'm excited for that one as well. All right, another question we got: who wins, Cassiope or Stevenson? I think we've kind of made that clear that it's a good bet to pick Gable for every match. But you never know.
No, and it's going to be really interesting. I'm super excited for that one because Cassiope is, he's a big-bodied guy. He is deceptively athletic. His hands and feet move so well. He uses his hands. He's the kind of guy that if you're teaching high school heavyweights, you're teaching junior high heavyweights, Cassiope might be the guy that actually probably would be the guy in college right now that I would show them and say, this is how you move your hands and your feet. This is how you both create angles. You bury guys when they try to attack you. He does a great job on top, and he's a penner. He's be one of the top penners in the country. So that is super intriguing. I'm still gonna pick Gable, but nothing would surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if Gable opened it up and won by 3, 4, 5, 6 points. It also wouldn't surprise me if Cassiope found a way to win that match.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's some stuff in there, and I'm with you. Gable Stevenson's probably going to take that match, but Cassiope has a lot of potential. I mean, a guy like that, high school prodigy, multiple-time Fargo champ. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting for sure. Do you know when that duel's going down?
Off the top of my head, Sunday, I believe, right?
Is it that soon?
I don't know. But if it's this weekend, it's Sunday.
Yeah, because they're taking on
Michigan dressed on Maryland, I think. One of them dressed on Maryland. I don't know who. So they would wrestle. Yeah, Sunday.
Wow, that's soon. Yeah, I'm excited for that for sure. There's gonna be some good stuff in that. I did not know that. But
I was gonna say, you asked that question, I'm like, man, am I nuts? I was so confused. You threw me off there. I'm like, I was so sure they wrestled Sunday.
who's that? Iowa and Minnesota?
Oh, I'm thinking Michigan and Minnesota. Okay, that's why I'm all out of sorts. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm the idiot here. So Iowa and Minnesota, that one I don't know.
Iowa and Minnesota is February 15th. So it's gonna be a while before that one, but it is coming up. I'm glad we're gonna get that duel. Steveson Cassiope is gonna be a great one.
I don't know why. I guess my brain was still stuck on Mason Paris and Gable for some reason.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And anytime I talk about Cassiope, I always think about him trashing Paris and Fargo.
Yes. That match.
Those two were linked forever in my brain. So somehow, some way, I went from Cassiope to that match, and I got stuck on Michigan with Paris.
Yeah, that happens. But other matches that we could look forward to, other questions that we have. Talk about other matches. One guy asked us, "Who's your pick to win NCAAs at 33?" I think I've made it pretty clear that for now I'm sticking with Gross, but I could be pretty easily swayed to DeSanto after talking to me a little bit. What do you say?
This is at NCAAs?
Yes.
Man. I take Rivera, actually. I don't have any black and white logic to this. I mean, look, the Midlands match between Gross and Rivera, Gross, this is not to say that he never beats Rivera again, because that is just not at all what I'm saying. He will never win the match that way again, right? Rivera dominated that whole bout. The officiating and the stalling and lack of just insanity. And then it was a beautiful move. The lateral drop from the bottom, no less, was a great move, a 6-point move. But I just don't, that's not a way that Seth is going to win that match again. So I actually came out of that match being more impressed with Rivera than I was going in. Yeah, I got a weird gut feeling with Rivera. I could be completely off, but I've always been really impressed. The first time that I ever really sat down and closely watched him was when he wrestled Darian for fifth and sixth as a
Mm-hmm.
freshman. And ever since then, it's not like he was some hidden gem after that, right? But, since then, I've made a note to really watch him closely.
Yep.
He's become wrestlers to watch. And I think, yeah, I'll go with Rivera for right now, but any one of the three of those guys is a great pick. The thing with Gross that's super interesting, though, is that those years at South Dakota State where he was so dominant, obviously running the table at 133 and winning a national title as a junior and finishing as a runner-up as a sophomore. One of the things that was kind of a hallmark for him was he attacked early. He always attacked and found a way to get on top early. And I don't know if it's that he's not attacking early now as much, or if it's that he's struggling to score on his feet early.
Mm-hmm.
But, Gross has kind of always been a guy that scores the vast majority of his points on the front half of matches, right? And it seems like he's having more trouble doing that against high-level guys this year.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, he split matches with DeSanto. He made some great adjustments for their second bout. And that was another one, just a wild, wild match. So, yeah, it's going to be really fun to watch that weight play out. The thing
Mm-hmm.
that you can't discount with Gross is that he's extremely savvy.
He is.
Um,
He is.
I mean, if you go back to the Rivera match, he set that lateral drop up. And I think that kind of got overlooked, but he
Mm-hmm.
suckered Rivera into that lateral drop. He intentionally fed him his hip and halfway relaxed and made Rivera think that he had conceded going out of bounds. And
Right.
that is just like a wildly smart, savvy thing to do, especially in that situation, right? Like that's all you got.
Right.
And he hit a home run. So Gross is a winner. Obviously, he's really savvy. Um, but I'll go Rivera just on gut feeling.
Yeah. That's a bold pick. I don't feel like he can get past DeSanto though. I don't think he could handle that pace. I don't know though. I don't know. It's gonna be tough, and I'm excited to see it. Iowa Northwestern, is that it? Is that a duel coming up?
Gotta be somewhere
Let's
at
see
some
it.
time.
See if I can find that.
Yeah, here
Uh,
I got Iowa schedule right in front of me.
okay.
Iowa Northwestern. I don't think so. If I'm looking, yeah, no, they don't wrestle in a duel this year.
Hmm. That's crazy. They're in conference. That's odd. Um, sad too though. But I wish we could see DeSanto Rivera. Um, I wish I could see so many matchups. But that one's definitely at the top of my list. All right, we'll do one more question, then get out of here. The last one is gonna be from Julius Grip. What's your opinion on how Kerry Collette is evolving the Campbell wrestling program? Uh, I mean, this one's definitely apparent. Kerry Collette's done a great job. He's kind of a small school guy, wrestled at Lock Haven, coaches at Campbell. I think he has the potential to be like a big time program coach, but he settles for a smaller school and does really well with it. What do you think about Kerry Collette? Helps develop a program so well.
I think there's a lot of things. Number one, I think he's the perfect guy for Campbell. Where he's from. He went to Jefferson Morgan High School down. I think that's in Greene County, but it's in the way southwest corner of Pennsylvania. Very rural area, so it's the perfect kind of upbringing. He goes to Lock Haven. He initially goes to Penn State, but then ends up at Lock Haven. Um, Small town guy, right? Just blue
Mm-hmm.
collar, small town guy, and I think Campbell's the perfect fit for him. In that aspect, right? He fits that that type of people, and he can appeal. His personality will appeal to the same type of kids the same type of recruits that will like the campus, the area, the feel the campus has, right? So that's a
Mhm.
huge part of it. Is it's a really good fit. Um, Technique wise, he can obviously develop wrestlers. You know, he knows all the
Yes.
technique in the world. He's an extremely bright wrestling mind. Um, so that's not a problem. Work ethic is not a problem. You know, that was one of the things that he's always been notorious for. Um, he is just he's obsessive, you know, and when he wants to make something happen, when he wants to build his program, right, it's something that he's just consumed with. So work ethic is never going to be a problem. He's got a great coaching staff around him. You know, I think they've done a great job of recruiting. They consistently, what they're kind of doing right now is they're getting the same type of kids that Edinburgh was getting when Flynn was there.
Right.
They are getting kids that they're not that super top elite tier in high school wrestling. But when you're standing there at Super 32 and you're wrestling kids watch a third and fourth place match, right? Or you're watching a semifinal, and you go, man, that kid's good. Where's he going to school? And you go, Campbell. Huh? Really? Right?
Mhm. Right.
That those are the types of kids that they're really building this program on, and that they built it on. You
Mhm.
know, obviously, Kreiser breaking through to be an All American was a huge step a few years ago. So I think Coach Kolat's doing an awesome job. To be honest with you, I don't think he ever leaves.
I don't either. I think he's staying there. Just like I said, he's a small school kind of guy, and looking like that's what it's gonna be moving forward. All right, Mason. I think that about does it for this show of HMA Wrestling. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate you being here, and until next time.
Yeah, man, anytime. Thanks for having me on. It's been real, it's been fun, and yeah, just keep doing good things.
Awesome. All right, see you next time.
Later on.